Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
I'm so tired. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sibyllus, can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Revolution. Please don't forget to subscribe and like and follow and turn on your notifications if you like this. It helps us. All right. Yeah, last week we had some technical difficulties, so I switched the mic out. It's really funny because I had a mic that I thought was broken, so I had to buy a new mic, and then the new mic was all fuzzy. So this mic is the one I thought was broken, so I taped it, and I think it's good. I think we're good. I've got a drinking problem. I can't keep it in my mouth. You may have noticed I shaved. You sound real clear. Okay. I probably sound a little bit deeper as well because I've been talking. Man, so I was like in Sundance for 2 days, like literally 2 nights and 3 days. And what a amazing experience. So did I used to have a beard? No. I've always looked like I was 16 years old. Yeah, I'm changing it up. So, of course, I decided to wear my crazy green shirt for some photos yesterday at Sundance because they had us. Flew out yesterday, but they had us like get up like butt crack of dawn and with all the people who worked on the documentary to go get pictures, and so we went and got pictures. I will say, like, if you see pictures in the LA Times, those will probably be the best because working with that photographer was really, really cool and really groovy. But we just went from like one. I thought it would all be in like one place, you know, and it was like, I'm like, is it in the next room? And they're like, no. And I had all my bags with me. They're like, no, it's in another building. And okay. But yeah, so we did a bunch of that. So I'm tired. So why do I have the same green shirt on? It's because I passed out when I got here last night and woke up a little late. But don't worry, I've got Galatians ready on go. So this is my pass. I did my girlfriend got me a long time ago these googly eyes, and some come with eyelashes. So I was putting eyelashed googly eyes on everybody's Sundance passes. And then her friend made us a bunch of badges for the different badges. This is the only one I got because the director accidentally walked off with all of the badges, but we have a lot of different cool ones. So hopefully we can get some cool ones more made. Maybe be little secret gifts for some of you folks who help our work. But yeah, so that was my pass. Woo. And I'm what does it say I am? I was a consultant. And consultant and entertainer. And lived through that hell called life. Anywho, I don't usually do a lot of questions on here just because it's getting harder to read, but if you do have a particular question about Sundance, I will do my best to ask that in a minute. But as soon as we get into Galatians, I'm not going to be doing the questions for that. But I want to fill you guys in because this is like family, you know. We're a community, and I realize, like, you know, community can be like family too, you know, even if we're not in person. And I think that's something I've realized, ironically, from watching the documentary again. I just watched the first two. We just showed the first 2 episodes, and it's really crazy. It's really crazy because, like, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, and then, you know, Vice takes care of everything to get you to there and get you cars and stuff to go to places. So it was really wild. Like, you're living paycheck to paycheck, but there's somebody holding your name at the airport. But yeah, it was really, really, it was fun, man. It was fun. It was interesting. It was weird. Like, at one point we were all sitting at the table talking about the Lollapalooza documentary. And, because that's the one I really wanted to see, that one. And there's another one called Kneecap. Those are the two I really want to see pretty bad. But we're talking about the Lollapalooza, because I went to Lollapalooza's, the first one and beyond. And I was like, I wonder, if that person's going to be there. And the guy behind us was like, no, they wouldn't let us use their stuff. And I was like, oh, who are you? And he's like, I'm the director. And this was just in the lobby of a Holiday Inn Express. And oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how much they were charging for hotels. I mean, it is capitalism at its worst, guys. They really take advantage of people there, but I didn't have to pay for the hotel because Vice had me there. So I appreciate them doing that and having me out there, because that was a really cool experience. And my mom had done it 23 years earlier. So when is it coming out? We don't know yet, because we're looking for someone to buy it. Like, that's what we're kind of doing at Sundance, is that you hope someone like HBO or Netflix or the Monsters, Amazon, or someone will pick it up, and that'll be how it gets out there. And I had done a project called One Punk Under God, but we weren't able to go to Sundance because Sundance bought it to put on their own channel. So it was, so I never got to go there. And it was wild. And what was really wild is and I said this in the video, but I did run into Pauly Shore on the street. And I go, Wheeze! And touched him. And I don't know why I touched him. I think sometimes it's people you grew up seeing your whole life that you kind of feel like, oh, it's good to see you again, old friend. But, oh, you didn't see me, I just saw you. But that was cool, and he was nice. He's like, what's up, buddy? And I saw Pauly D from the Jersey Shore on my airplane. Pretty big. Pete got to be on the plane with, oh gosh, what's his name? The guy who played Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. So I'm totally jealous. Anyhow, so that was it. That was part of it. But yeah, so I met my girlfriend out there. She went with me for moral support, and that was really awesome, because it was a lot to take in, and it's very emotional to kind of relive through that stuff. We got there, and then they threw us in a press room, and I mean, it's a lot of waiting, but it's also a lot of talking to people for like 10, 15 seconds, and then you don't ever see them again. So I guess everybody's networking, and I'm like, small talk is my kryptonite, if that's why I seem so tired tonight. There was a lot of that type of thing going on. And then you go and you do pictures and they go, hey, look here, hey, look over here, hey, look over here, hey, look over here, and you just do stuff like that, which was wild. But we sat through, and then we did a Q&A afterwards. And one of the really exciting parts of the Q&A was being able to talk about our good buddy Steve Peters and how he's in this documentary, and how important that was to me to have someone like Steve, who was a father figure to me, to be in there. And also someone who is, more of a mentor figure. Carlton Pearson is also in there, and we lost him last year as well. So it was really great to kind of celebrate those guys, and the film is dedicated to them. And that was really great. And Elton John and David Furnish recorded the intro for it and said, hello, this is why we love Tammy Faye. I mean, it was surreal. It was really just super, surreal to see, and to hear the good feedback from people who really love my mother, and even loved my father, and loved what their work meant to them, and the compassion that you rarely see with people. That was really, I mean, you don't rarely see, you do see it with people, but there was a lot of that there as well. So yeah, it was fantastic, and it was also kind of a time for a lot of us to come together who argued over the project, and but to kind of see each other and just be people and be like, we did it, and here we are, Helen Rollins and I, and she's with Magician's Niece, and she's one of my best friends. When we said goodbye, Helen started crying, and then it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, we finished, we did it, you know, and it was like this like really emotional moment for the both of us of just being like all this, you know, hard work, all this, like me and her both have cried about this project. We've screamed about this project. We have shared every human emotion under the sun about this project, and to see that come to pass. And also, you know, after we lost Caleb, you know, that was a really tough time, and finances really dropped, and I didn't get paid for like 6 months after that, and it was just a hard time. And I was able to thank the heads of Vice for allowing me to do that as another job, you know, and allow me to do some of the booking and things like that. So I was able to thank the president, like this guy Danny, who I'd never met in person before and only seen once on a video call, and say, hey, listen, I want you to let you know, like, not only was this awesome to be able to do this, but you know, you guys allowed me to help pay my rent and take care of my kids and do things like that, and kind of put gratitude out in the world. So it was, you know, and Pete was there, and I think me and Pete, like, over 3 days got to see each other for maybe like 45 minutes at most, but it was really great, you know. I mean, so we, because actually just have to be moving, and they're really strict with their, like, who gets to go into what rooms and stuff. So it was, if you think church is exclusive and not too exclusive, Hollywood, I kept thinking, like, you know, we're really harsh on the church so often in this world, you know, and you know, you see all these ex-Christian podcast people and stuff like that. I'm like, man, try going through like Hollywood and like the entertainment industry. Like, it's really cool too, and it's really exclusive, and it's really like, if you're cool, if you're hot, if you're not, if you know, if you got a badge or you don't got a badge, you know, it's not the most inclusive thing. So I think one of the things I came out learning from that was that humanity can be that way. Humanity can just be exclusive and inclusive. Exclusive, and it's up for us to be inclusive. Yeah, thank you, Zoe. And our connection with Pete. I mean, me and Pete, like, just embraced each other when we saw each other, and like, every moment we were together was precious, you know. So even that was really beautiful, you know. Yeah, and plus, if me and Pete had been together the whole time, we would have been making jokes and probably driving everybody crazy. But it was really great. And my other friend out there's a bunch of different Alexes, but the Alex who was there and who was really somebody who really supported me during the project when I was out doing and filming, he was always just making sure I was okay, and you know, and got to hang out with him some, and that was just, I don't know. It was a brilliant time, but it was exhausting. Like, I don't feel like I've been this tired since since the time I camped and spoke at Cornerstone, you know, sleeping on, like, but that was like 5 days outside in really smelly weather and me speaking constantly. And this was just like 2 days of just like overload. So survived. Thank you guys for being curious. Thank you guys for being part of this journey, and we will continue to do this. And I hope when you're able to see this that you realize, like, this is part of the Revolution legacy and why we are who we are. And this is what I was going to say, is the thing that I did realize, as I often go in rabbit holes, especially when I'm exhausted, is what I kind of learned from what I kind of saw and never realized from watching the documentary in PTL, and how it was this television show going to thousands and thousands of people. And my dad had to raise more money in one day than I've ever raised in my life. But at the same time, they were community, and they loved people, and people who were watching were part of that family. And that was kind of a neat thing to be like, you know, this is not, we're not really breaking such new ground, you know. And this is, you know, some of the people said, yeah, you know, I went to church, but when I watched PTL, I got more out of it. I felt more loved. I felt more grace when I watched the show, you know. And that's the thing, is like, you know, it would be great if we were all in person, but we're not, and it still works in a beautiful way like that. And that was really inspiring to me, to be like, you know, I'm doing something that my parents did, and that makes me really happy. So that was cool. All right, folks. Let's see. There you go. Okay. Here we go. Galatians. We didn't finish, remember, guys? Gals and theys and thems and everybody else who's in the house. We did not. Did we get about like halfway through Galatians 1? Because I have been really going in depth and studying. Like, this is probably, I mean, I love this book more than anything, but this is probably the most in depth. Like the books I've been reading are like 3 pages on a sentence, and it's just like. So we're going to try to finish one today. I think we'll finish one today. I don't think we'll get to 2, but we're going to try because I would like to read a little bit of 2. Just a little bit of a recap for Galatians 1. So Paul has got, is not using the normal greetings. He's not using the normal Thanksgivings. He's kind of skipping the niceties. And he gets right to business, and he gets to he gets right to the point of I'm astonished that you are turning to another gospel. You're not following the Christian gospel. You're not following. You're another gospel. We're doing something that's another good news, and that's something I think we're all familiar with, dealing with another good news of some type. And he goes, but there are some of you who are confusing you and want to pervert the gospel of Christ. And when he means pervert the gospel of Christ, he means bringing in traditions and making them law, turning traditions into law, like you have to do this to be a good Christian. Now, Paul doesn't ever speak of hell in any of his letters, so he's not saying, you're doing this and you're going to hell. But what's really great about that was with the absence of mentioning hell, which is fantastic in my opinion. He's still saying like you don't pervert things, even though it's not going to cost you everything. You don't pervert things because we need things to be pure. The reason is pure is that human beings are important. This message is so important to bring people peace, not to be an insurance, eternal insurance or anything like that. But it's so important because it's got to be something that's inclusive for everyone. And I'm grateful for that. So I think we ended at the end of it goes, now when he was talking about people's opinions in 10, when he said, I think this is where we ended, is, am I now seeking human approval or God's approval, or I am trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. So Paul, again, is talking to his critics. He's saying his critics are accusing him of being people pleaser and just saying things to make people happy rather than the truth. And that's what we hear a lot of is the people pleasing, blah, blah, blah. So much critique on like that. This is another problem. This is why we need to learn to disagree well or argue well. I'm using disagree well because I think that's the best place to start. And then if it gets further, then we argue well. But so many people like want to judge your character when your theology is different, when your belief system is different, rather than saying, well, maybe they just have read something I haven't read, or maybe they were raised a different way. Instead we're judging each other's character, like we're flawed because we don't agree, or you must be trying to win people over, or you must be trying to get rich. Like we question each other's motives constantly, and I think mainstream media plays a lot into that, because it's always, this like, what are you trying to manipulate us? Are you trying to, what's your hidden agenda here? And I have to know that sometimes that there's just not, sometimes there's not really a hidden agenda, and there might be an agenda that's unconscious to ourselves that we're seeking, or some sort of approval, or repeating some sort of trauma in our life unconsciously that we don't know that we're struggling with. But this is like, what do you, and but then you get, agenda. Speaking of agendas, like I could tell, like when we were at Sundance, there's certain people who have agendas, and their agenda is like, we got to sell this thing, we got to do this thing. So, you know, there were certain people on our team who were like, I don't know if Jay should be doing interviews because we don't know what he's going to say, and it's not because they don't like me, it's because the agenda is to sell, so there's all, what I mean? So people are always kind of, they have their agendas, and sometimes their agendas are just to do their job, strangely enough, believe it or not. So here we get into of Paul kind of trying to vindicate himself to the Galatians against his critics, and really kind of give his testimony of why he is who he is. And so let's look at that for a second. Here in 11. For I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that the gospel that was proclaimed to me is not of human origin. For I did not receive it from human source, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ. Now, one thing I want us to look at and think about is, could you imagine, if you will, how long would you watch this, listen to this podcast or watch this YouTube video if I just said, hey, I want you guys to know that I have never read a book about anything about God, but Jesus came to me and gave me this message, so I'm just going to tell you this message, I would say we'd have one or two people who are like, have tinfoil hats on maybe, but I don't think a lot of people would be like, that is a good argument. Jay is speaking straight from the Lord. But sometimes, but sometimes that happens. Like I think about Carlton Pearson, and Carlton Pearson told me, he's like, scholarship proved to me to prove to my conviction that there was no hell. But he's like, but first God spoke to me. I felt God clearly tell me this before. I was evangelical. I believed it my whole life. And he's like, and I really felt like in a moment there, God spoke to my heart, and said, I'm not sending these people to hell. And he said, and so I just had to follow it, and then find out the scholarship backed me up. So sometimes there's that as well. So, the nuances and interesting parts of life. But I'm not telling you that. Don't worry, I've been reading and reading and reading. I don't come with just a special message from Jesus. But I do know my life, as it does for many of us, I think even for philosophers, and they try to say it doesn't, but like when I studied Tillich's life, his philosophy and his theology seemed to, those experiences played a part in it. And that does with all of us, There's no like pure preaching or pure truth or pure comedy or pure art or anything. It's all of our moments and new experiences that play out in that. So Paul says, you have heard, and no doubt, my earlier life in Judaism. I was violently persecuting the church of God and was trying to destroy it. Now, this is what's really interesting, and I hadn't thought of this, but I saw it in when I was reading some of the studies, is that one of the things is we get here. Sorry, I've taken so many notes on this that I have to go through all my notes. Is Paul is foreshadowing this as what he said is what he was doing to Christians is what his critics are doing to the church of Galatia, the Gauls, to the Galatian community. Paul is saying, like, I was just like my critics. I violently persecuted the church, which I believe there was violence involved, but he knows also what sowing discord can do and can quickly turn into violence. So in a way, Paul is foreshadowing that, hey, I was this way. I did this very thing. I was someone who questioned the Christian message and tried to destroy it and tried to say that this wasn't correct. And he was also, in a way, it would be nationalism in a way as well, because when you're under being oppressed by the Romans, you're keeping your Jewishness, your Judaism is part of your national identity, and so he's also is defending that as well, not just his faith, but his identity being in occupied territory. Interestingly enough, so we have that. So this foreshadowing of what his rivals are doing to the Galatians, who now have the truth. I advanced in my Judaism beyond many among my people of the same age, for I was far more zealous for the tradition in my ancestors. Now, often too, a lot of this time when you were ahead and top of people your age, you were also probably had family who were in your tradition and practicing your tradition, and you're kind of following in their footsteps, and so that often would be recognized too as a generational thing as well. Interestingly enough, I didn't know that until just recently. But when God, who had set me apart before I was born and called me, and this is another interesting part. I'm gonna highlight it right now. Because this is interesting. What's really interesting is that I have my daughter's green apple pen. It smells delightful. For I was far more zealous for the tradition of my ancestors. But when God, who had set me apart before I was born and was called me through his grace, I was pleased to reveal his son to me. Now, so Paul here, he's condemning people who he felt were opposed or were breaking God's laws. But this very language that he uses here, for when God, who had me, set me apart before I was born, called me. I always thought like, oh well, here's some stuff for my my predestination, my Calvinist brothers and sisters. That was kind of what I was thinking. Like this is kind of, this is some Calvinist stuff, right? But what it actually is he is not saying like, in a way he's saying he's predestined to this, but what he's using words that people would be familiar with, and he's reflecting words that were used in Isaiah and Jeremiah. So when he's saying, from my mother's womb, this is not new theology. This is something that would have been familiar to people who read the Old Testament and who were familiar with Isaiah and Jeremiah using these same words. It's like, from my mother's womb, God chose me to do these things and to fulfill these prophecies. And so, so he's also like, hitting his critics. He's hitting, in Galatia, as we know, it's a mixed culture of Gauls and Jews, and they're Christians. And so he's knowing that at least the Jewish part of Galatia are going to recognize these terms of him comparing himself to Jeremiah and referring to the letters or the books of Isaiah, which is really interesting. That I might proclaim him amongst the Gentiles. I did not confer with any human being. Once again, here we go. Nor did I go to Jerusalem to those who were already apostles before me. Now I can vibe with this because I didn't go to, I've taken classes and I've taken seminary classes, but I never went to Bible college. I never did anything like that. Neither did my parents, And so sometimes our preachers aren't that well educated. And I feel that sometimes, but I've educated myself and been lucky enough to have friends who are doctorates and things like that, lead me and guide me in the right ways. And I just have a hunger and thirst for truth and knowledge in this faith. So that's where I am. So I can relate to what Paul's saying here, because I'm sure they were saying, Paul was being accused of not being a man of God, though. That's the funny thing is that Paul was he was being judged for having man's message, not God's message, which is really interesting. Nor did I go to Jerusalem to those who were already apostles before me, but I went at once into Arabia, And afterwards I returned to Damascus. And of course, we all know what happened in Damascus. Then, let me see, I'm going to just take some of the notes I took. Sorry, folks, I'm so exhausted from peopling. Introvert. This is the introvert. So it's no accident that Paul is echoing biblical language in the words he's using here. You know, he's very particularly doing this. And it's almost like philosophy. Like philosophy chooses very particular language, very particular words to convey very particular truth. And so Paul is being very careful with the words he chose here. And if we look at when we talk about disagreeing well or arguing well, when the passions get out there, we're not choosing our words anymore. Sometimes we start just to speak from our anger, our hurt. But here, you know, Paul's being very particular. And I think those times is when we're going to disagree well, we need to have particularly choose our words, you know what we're saying, and not let our anger and our hurts get the best of us. And I found a great way to be able to do that is to have people in your life who support you and love you, even if it's just people online that you're talking to privately or things like that, that you can vent with, that you can say, I'm really pissed off about this. And they listen, and they go, oh, I get it. You're like, I'm just venting, And so often when I talk to people, I'm like, can I vent for a second? Like I ask, because I'm like, I'm not looking for answers. I'm not looking for a pushback. There's some things that are in my brain that I just need to come out, so I can see what they look like in words, or I can hear what they sound like in words. See, I see words, man. So that's cool, and it's also what we're seeing is Paul's understanding of his own mission. What he knows, like his mission is, and so what we see here is someone who's saying, like, let me get a little further in this. Then 3 years I did, and then after 3 years, 18, I did go up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas, and stayed with him 15 days. But I did not see any other apostles except James, the Lord's brother. And what I am writing you before God, I do not lie. Then I went into the region of Syria and Cilicia, which I'm not pronouncing right, and was still unknown by the sight, but the church of Judea are in Christ. Then only heard it said, the one who formerly was persecuting us is now proclaiming the faith he once tried to destroy. Now, how wild is this? Is now Paul's coming in trying to keep the same thing from happening that he did to others. Paul is coming into this community saying, listen, I have destroyed communities. I have built, I have sown discourse amongst people's lives. I've done this. But now I know that my mission is to undo that work and undo that type of thing. And that's, I think you see what's really beautiful when you hear Brother Carlton Pearson talk about, like, yeah, no, I told people they're going to hell. I led people to Jesus and told them they needed to get right with God or they were going to go to hell. I did it on airplanes. I did it in hotels. I did it everywhere. I was leading everybody to, saving everybody from hell. And all of a sudden I didn't believe it. And he goes, and I know my mission is now is to let everybody know they are included. Everybody know they're accepted. And so what we're seeing here is a type of repentance. We're seeing a changed man. We're seeing somebody who's going like, I was once like what the group here is called. They're called Judaizers. His critics. They were called Judaizers. Not the most PC name to talk about this time, but that's what they were called. And Paul is Jewish, as well. So Paul is going, I was like them. He's not saying this in all the words, but if you listen, and if you read this book 800 times like me, he's saying, I was once like these folks. I was once an enemy to the truth. I was once an enemy to grace. I was once someone who is, as they said, the one who formerly was persecuting us is now proclaimed. I once persecuted people like these folks are persecuting you for not following the law. And now I am a new human being. And people are celebrating for that fact. And what Paul is understanding is Paul has this understanding of his message and knows what he believes. And what I also love is that he's also, when he uses Isaiah and Jeremiah, he's he's saying like this is the type of call I have on my life, and these books show the type of call that I have in my life. And in a way, it's like Galatians for myself, if you will. Like this is what I know. This book is extremely important to my life, and I will use the language of this. But there's time I will say, you need to be careful of biting, devouring one another. And some people know, oh, he's referring to Galatians, and some people think, oh, that's really clever. First you say, oh, I read it here. Then you say, I heard it somewhere. And then the third, you were like, I'm thinking. That was the old preacher's rule. It's a joke, don't worry. So, so Paul says all this stuff, here. He talks about, back up here when he says, I was set apart, from my mother's womb, but when God who set me apart, when he uses that word back in 15, but when God who had set me apart before I was born and was called, I mean, this is from Jeremiah 1:15, where he says, I think, consecrated is, I think the word uses, but set apart, also seen as, so he's just saying like my call, my purpose resembles that of Jeremiah. So, that I've been consecrated for this message for such a time as this. So he's really being really particular, very honest with his words. And I always did this part of Galatians, I always just kind of blew through, like, all right, we know Paul did this. We know he was a bad guy. We know he persecuted. Oh, isn't it wonderful that he, all that stuff. But I think it's important for this as a study and for a series that we do this type of dissection, because I think it might not be as fun in this instant or as interesting in this instant, but as a whole, this is something important for us to learn and to realize that why do we read books like Galatians? Why do we look at Romans and Corinthians? Why do we read the Gospels, and why do we do these things? Because it's a reminder of who we are. It helps us understand what our mission is. And so when Paul's saying I was set apart and I was chosen from my birth, he's not just saying like, he's not just saying like I was chosen to be a follower of God. What he's saying is the God who gave me life, the God who gave me grace, also gave me another gift, and that gift is this mission. That gift is me loving you and helping you find peace and freedom and find that same grace that has been bestowed upon me, to find that same reason to live that's been bestowed upon me, and to find your own mission or purpose, really, to find your own purpose. And that's what Paul's saying here is, like, these folks are trying to destroy you and keep you out of your life, keep you away from grace, and not allow you to be able to realize your purpose. But because I've had those things, and because I was one of those people at one time, now it has been shown to me, now it has been revealed to me that I am worthy, that the same God who gave me life and breath and gave me grace also gave me purpose, also gave me mission. And that mission is for me to make sure that this is a community that is whole. This is a community that they love one another. This is a community where we respect each other's religious traditions in different ways, but we don't make those deal breakers. We don't go to war over those. We don't write each other off. We do not excommunicate each other. This is what has been given to me, And of course he learned, and he thought, and of course he had to reflect on this. He had to read Jeremiah. And so that is all part of the process. There's so many parts that play into that, so many lessons that play into that. And this is why we learn, and this is why we grow, and this is why we can wake up one day and go, and it's not you've wasted your life. Paul did not waste his life, because Paul couldn't have gotten here without that. I think a lot of people think, well, I wasted all my life being a Christian, or, oh my God, I'm 48 years old, and now I'm old, and I can't be cool anymore, and I'm not punk. No, that's just not true. You have the life, you have breath, and he said, live your life, follow that mission. That's just part of the story. This is just where we find ourselves in this story. We're finding ourselves in the exciting part of the story that's setting us free, where we're having this moment of change, where we're literally like, this is where repentance plays and the doors go, oh, I excluded so many people, or I was judgmental, or I hated myself, and now I don't, now I want to help people. So it's really a beautiful thing of what he's saying here, because it kind of foreshadows the rest of this book, which is really beautiful. I've never spent 2 weeks on Galatians 1, because I always feel like the meat's in like 2 and 3, and then 4 I get a little bored, But now like everything's exciting to me, and I hope you find it as exciting as well, because I think it just gives us reason. It gives a reason not to be like, I'm just going to listen to Jay talk about Galatians. Like, it gives you a reason, like, I'm going to go read Galatians. And when we do You Are Accepted by Paul Tillich following this, because we're going to do it because that's my new tradition. I hope, my goal is not for me to just read it to you or for you to listen to Pete read it, because we'll re-release that as well. We have it released. You could hear it now, which is great. So you should go listen to it, but we'll put it up again. But it's for you to read, for you to take it in and to feel it and understand it. So that's how it ends there, is the one who formerly was persecuting us is now proclaiming the faith that he once tried to destroy, and they glorified God because of me. And how cool is that, And I don't take that lightly. I mean, even here I saw someone say, here we have Teresa says, I'm very proud of you, Jay. I can remember when you were just a little bitty guy coming in on the PTL station and helping out your dad sometimes, and it's those it was, hey, you've lived through this, and look where you've come. And, it's like, wow. And I think that's for all of us, though. I don't think it's just, when you hear things, when you were a child, and it's just impressive to listen to that and not just take it like, oh, okay, thanks, like when you're in a family reunion, like, yeah, okay, yeah, oh, I was tiny, but sometimes to remember that, hi, Elliot. Sometimes when you remember that, you can see where you've come and how far you've come. And I think that's why in like 12-step programs, they celebrate time. You can remember where you came from. I remember one time when I was just getting sober, and I dyed my hair blue. And my sponsor and my grand sponsor, my sponsor, were all waiting for me out front, and they started laughing when they saw me, and I got really upset. I was like, oh, I'm punk rock, my hair is blue, blah, 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 and they're like, no, they're like, we both did the same thing. Like, my sponsor's like, yeah, I shaved my head off, and like his grand sponsor's like, I went platinum blonde, it's like, all of a sudden we're sober and we don't know what to do with ourselves, and so we make all these little, we just do these changes. It's just it's how the program works, and it's just funny when you see these nuances happen with so many different people, and it was really beautiful. So I love this, and so once again, I just want to say, is like, as Paul's saying, is God who gives us grace in life and also gives us a mission or purpose, and he's saying this is what God has called the Galatians for. He's saying this is God has called you, the Galatians, for that. And I'm saying this is what God's doing in our lives as a community here. And I'm grateful to be a part of that. And, all the wild things that happen in life, like, going to these film festivals and seeing all these people and that seemed like, it seems like a foreign land to me, it's like, capitalism has separated us all in that situation quite a bit. You don't know who's playing and who's real, and so that's a hard thing to do. But I'm not there to judge that. I'm there to kind of show grace to that, and also learn from that, and remember to treat everyone equally and with grace and love, as Paul is calling us to do in the book of Galatians. So it's so funny. One of the reasons I was so exhausted, I was like, I've got to do this today, is because last night I kept having nightmares that I had canceled this talk and canceled the talk, and I can't believe I canceled the talk. Why did I cancel the talk? And I woke up like, oh, that's why I'm so tired. I have all these nightmares, and I was like, well, I'm not going to cancel the talk. That's not going to come true. This talk has to happen today, and I want to talk to the community and share my experience. But I also want to talk about Galatians, and how that works in every aspect of my life, even when I go to freaking film festivals. And you realize that humanity, why we need Galatians is not just for the church. It's not just to reform the church, but it's to reform humanity. You know, I was sitting at a bar with someone and they were asking me what the documentary was about. And I was saying, well, I said, my mother had a way, and this has to do with Galatians as well, so I'm not going off the script. I said, well, one of the reasons why people are interested in my mother is my mother was able to like speak to like conservative Christians and then go in a room with drag queens and speak and hang out with them and love them, and then be at the mall and have people say horrible things to her and then leave being friends, and disarming the situation through love and calling people together. And this guy was probably, I think, in his 50s. And he's like, man, he's like, the world needs that now. He's like, we've lost that. It's gone. You know, we're all so separate, you know, and we're all have our own little, you know, groups, and we're just tearing each other apart, you know. And he's like, liberals and conservatives, and then even within their parties, they have each other where we're all tearing each other apart, and we've forgotten how to communicate with each other and how to be together as humans. And so you go like, oh, this is a bigger job, because we're you know, we need a Tammy Faye not to set the church straight. I mean, the church is a small portion now. What we need is people like Tammy Faye and people like the Apostle Paul and people like Jesus and people like Dr. King and people like that. And you think, well, I could never be like that, but you can, because they were just people. Trust me, I knew my mom. She was just a person. She got hangry when she didn't eat. And sometimes she had unpredictable behaviors, you know. When we would go to Red Lobster, when I was a kid, she would have a spanking spoon in her purse in case I acted up at Red Lobster, because we thought that was the fancy place. Um, she was a human being. She could get mad, and she was a firecracker when she was mad. You did not want to get caught sneaking in the middle of the night at your house. So anyhow, I just want to say, that's what's going on. I'm exhausted, guys. I'm sorry. My mind's wandering off. But it was interesting just to talk to other people who are seeing that there's a problem in this world right now, and that we're so divided, and that they're hungry. You know, people in this industry, people in outside of our worlds, are hungry to see this division stop, and stop to see all this virtue signaling and all these types of things that continue to tear us apart. And as you know, I feel like capitalism plays a huge part in that, and because they play us against each other, you know, to get richer. And I think we've got to expose that as well, so we will stop biting and devouring one another, and that we will realize that we're all given life, and that same thing that gives us life has given us grace, and that same thing, whatever it is that's given us grace, given us life, has given us purpose, and to find our purpose, that we're called to, and live life before death. So there you go. As usual, I keep people asking me to say their name, which I don't know. Is this like some sort of new internet game or something? I just said somebody else. I said Elliot's name, and I'll say Brigida's name, but I don't know. Is this like something so I can get into my bank account? I'm confused. Does anybody know why people are asking me to say their names? It's an S&M sort of thing. As usual, Revolution needs your financial support more than ever. You know, I realized that the more I was like, I can't believe I'm here, and you know, I was late paying my rent this month, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is insane. But yeah, Revolution still needs your support. We need your help. You can go to revolutionchurch.com and you can make a donation there. We've got a couple different ways to do that, and that would be really great. Someone's asking me about an Instagram, a pen that I showed that was of my mom. Yeah, I'll keep trying. I'll mention to World of Wonder that people want to buy that pen, and I'll put up a link on my Instagram if they have more of those pens of my mom's eyes available. I will do that. Maybe it's a new troll thing. Say my name, say my name. I only got one name to say, and that's Jesus. I'm just kidding. I only got one thing to say, and that's donate. That can be used out of context in a million places, right? There's a clip for the haters. But yeah, we can use your donations, tax deductible and all that, but that's how we do Revolution. That's how we keep Revolution going. And we could really use your help. So please go to revolutionchurch.com. We've got Venmo and we've got PayPal. And you might say, I don't do Venmo or PayPal, but they're really easy to sign up for. And to be honest with you, it really helps us a lot. What also helps us a lot is by liking these. So if you've signed up to YouTube and you're on YouTube, please like these talks. That really helps a lot. Please follow us and please turn on your little notifications. So if we decide to do a surprise talk, or sometimes I'll do a talk a day later or something, or I'll do a reflection. I haven't done one of those in a while, but if I do, you'll get a notice saying, hey, this is happening. So liking, which is the thumbs up, really helps a lot as well. And sharing these talks with other people, sharing our talks on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever the other platforms you're on, or just sharing them with friends really does help as well. So we could really use your support right now, because I'm really excited about this year, and this year will get better the more that we're able to grow as a community. I love you all. I thank you all, and I'm really glad to share my life with all of you. And it was nice to be able to kind of get up and share my experience with everyone. And because it was like, oh, all this happened, and I didn't have anybody to talk to here. So I'm talking to you, and now I do have people to talk to. So that's kind of a great thing about this community. I love you all very much. I'm really grateful. And, just seeing my loved ones who've passed away recently, including my mom and stuff like that. This life is short, and let's get really awesome with grace. Let's really let people know they're loved and accepted, and that they're in. Nobody's out. Everybody's in. It's anarchy. Everybody's in. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.